Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for staying here for this special address, which will be delivered shortly. Could I invite all of you who are having engaging conversations right now to find and then take your seats so you can hear from Doug Burgum, the U.S. Secretary of the Interior. Many of you who know the IISS Shangri-La and Manama dialogues know that we often have defense ministers, we have foreign ministers at the Shangri-La dialogue in Singapore. Every U.S. defense secretary since Don Rumsfeld until Pete Hegseth only a couple of months ago attended. Here we've had secretaries of state, secretaries of defense. We haven't yet had a secretary of interior, but I think the times call for a secretary of interior, especially one like Doug Burgum, who has a uniquely special background to address issues of concern in this region that have always addressed energy security. Doug Burgum was the governor of the state of North Dakota from 2016 to 2024. He would probably prefer me to say governor of the great state of North Dakota, as is often the custom in the United States. He's been long keenly interested in energy issues. He worked very sensitively with the indigenous people of his state in Dakota. And as Secretary of the Interior, he oversees federal lands, but is also the chairman of the National Energy Dominance Council, the NEDC. And given the enormous consumption of energy in the United States, despite the fact that it's a net exporter of energy, there is a need to build more energy resource in the United States, not least as the U.S. seeks to maintain its advantages in artificial intelligence development fueled by very energy-hungry data centers. So this is a person who can bring together for this audience the issues of energy security, tech sovereignty, and the ways in which he can work with countries in this region and adjacent ones to ensure that the great promises of AI and of the new economies that are evolving are supported by sufficient energy. So with that slightly filibustering introduction to ensure that the room has settled, could I invite the Secretary of the Interior to take the podium and deliver his special address to this 21st Manama Dialogue. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. It's so great to be here with all of you, and I want to especially thank our gracious hosts here in Bahrain, especially the Crown Prince Salman for his nation's warm hospitality for myself and a team and all of us here from the United States. Also want to give a shout out to Tulsi Gabbard, who I know was here last night, a fellow cabinet member, director of national intelligence, and all the others, including Sheikh Nasir and others that are doing such a great job of hosting us. Also grateful for all of you that are here, and for John. Thank you, John, for your decades of work to pull together this important collection of ministers, ambassadors, distinguished guests, business leaders. The topics that you're all discussing here today are important for the entire world, and I appreciate the dedication that all of you have towards securing national security and to building dialogue and collaboration around the world. It's an honor to be with so many leaders that understand how integral that energy security is to national security. And I'm here today just to offer some brief remarks and then take a Q&A with John and the group, but I would want to start with the highest level. It's been an honor to serve as part of President Trump's cabinet, and as John said, in the newly formed National Energy Dominance Council. The National Energy Dominance Council is made up of about half of the cabinet, with the understanding that it takes a whole of government approach to make sure that everything from sanctions to tariffs to our nuclear energy, to the enormous blessing of glorious natural resources that we have on public lands in America, that all of these come together along with permitting reform and regulation reform to make sure that we can move at the speed that's needed. President Trump understands that national security is deeply entwined with energy security, and I think that you're seeing President Trump really exercise what we would call energy diplomacy in his work around the world. I've been asked to try to summarize the U.S. perspective, and I would put it into two words. Number one is peace. President Trump desires almost more than anything that we stop the wars and stop the conflicts around the world, stop the killing, as he likes to say, and that as a world, that with peace at hand, that we can then start focus on prosperity, and that there is a opportunity for a golden age of abundance for not just the United States and our allies, but for every country, working together towards the common goals that all desire. With that, I would say there's another deeply entwined part of this peace and prosperity mission, which is a complete redirection relative to energy production that may have been gone on in the more progressive world. And that is that this idea that somehow that we're in a period of energy transition. They're going to transition from one form of energy to another form of energy, reflecting that somehow demand for energy was static. But we have a very common sense approach and an understanding that right now we're in a period of massive energy addition. There is no transition per se, but energy addition. We need more energy in the world to power prosperity. We need more energy in the world to fuel artificial intelligence. And we certainly need more energy for those in the world that don't even have access to the basic things like electricity today. And so when President Trump talks about the Energy Dominance Council, it's really about going beyond energy independence. It's about fundamentally having to have energy diplomacy. You have to have the energy to sell to your friends and allies so that they do not have to buy from your adversaries. To have energy dominance is energy abundance, to be able to have affordable, reliable electricity prices for consumers and industry, but also to be able to have the power to be able to win the AI arms race. So with this perspective we've been pursuing, and I would just have to say it's been incredibly remarkable. If you think back to just 1 year ago, we were days away from the U.S. election, and under the prior administration, there was actually a ban on the construction of LNG export facilities in the United States. Today, here I stand before you, the United States, the #1 LNG exporter in the world, and our exports are up 25% over a year ago, 25% on top of the largest number of the world. The level of investment and construction and ingenuity and innovation that's going in to speed our ability to expand the exports of LNG off of the Gulf of America, the Gulf Coast, to our allies, particularly in Europe, has been remarkable. But there's more to come. And I would say, again, President Trump's not only completely changed the direction of our country in terms of energy production, as he famously talked about during the campaign, when he would say, "Drill, baby, drill," which was a euphemism that everyone could understand for we need to increase, not decrease energy production. In July, we set a record of 13.6 million barrels of oil today production in the United States. We expect that number to climb even further because we've taken such a 180-degree different direction in terms of permitting and particularly on public lands. President Trump's interest in this region, I think, speaks for itself. The very first diplomatic mission he took upon being in office was to the Gulf region. That was a mission that was acclaimed around the world. It was a mission that reaffirmed friendships. It was a mission that reaffirmed military and strategic alliances and helped, again, pave the way for the dramatic results of the ceasefire that we've just achieved in October when he made a trip to Europe. Many of you, I'm sure, were there, or the leaders of your country were there, celebrating that historic moment. What's next in terms of the U.S.? There's one major conflict that rests heavily on Europe's and President Trump's mind, and that's the Russia-Ukraine conflict. There certainly is an intention to bring that conflict to a close. Like terrorism around the world and terrorist groups that were funded with sales of petroleum products, many of those coming from Iran. The Russian war machine is fueled by sales of oil and gas. And again, under the idea that we want to sell energy to our friends and allies so they don't have to buy from our adversaries, there's a concerted effort between the US and the EU to be sure to be able to supply all the LNG that Europe needs so that they can stop buying Russian gas. This is going to mean investments in infrastructure in Eastern Europe. Certainly one of the strategic goals we have is a north-south corridor for LNG. The amount of LNG exports to Europe have hit an all-time high. The U.S. has the capacity. We have 5 more LNG facilities, all of considerable scale coming online. We can meet all of the Europeans' needs for replacing 100% of Russian gas with U.S. production. But we need the infrastructure. So again, investment opportunities abound in Eastern Europe as we give particularly those landlocked countries in Eastern Europe the optionality to have not just one pipe into their country, but 2, so they have the optionality of who they purchase from in the future. In closing, to wrap up these opening comments, is to just say, again, thank you to all of you that are here. And again, thank you to John for this convening. The opportunities for alliances with the United States have never been greater. The opportunity for partnerships and investment in our country have never been greater. As we move to onshore, reshore manufacturing, as we head into the AI era of AI, there's going to be increased demand for electricity in all forms. And I would just say on the AI front, it's important to understand that a kilowatt of electricity is worth more today than it ever has been in human history. A kilowatt of electricity now can not only turn on the lights in a beautiful room like this, or heat a home, or help move a car. You can convert electricity directly into intelligence. Software during my lifetime has been the one thing that has transformed human capability more than any other invention. It's something that's extended the capability of the human mind. But now with AI, where we can not only just develop products, AI software can actually develop code. It can start solving problems on its own, or problems that we would direct it to solve. And so there's going to be an explosion in productivity, but that also comes with that a demand for electricity. Every manufacturing plant in the future is going to be highly automated. If it's highly automated, it's going to have robotics. The robotics are going to require electricity. So there is a huge demand for electricity in the world, and there is a race that's on to make sure that the United States can have all the electricity that we need to win the AI arms race, and to make sure that we've got affordable energy prices for everyone. Because as you know in this room, energy is not a separate energy. It's not a separate industry. Energy is the basis of all other industries. It's in the clothes we wear, the cars we drive, the food we eat. And having affordable energy prices is the key to prosperity. So again, I'll close where I began, which is with gratitude for all of you, and for gratitude for being in a room of people that understand that energy security and national security are intertwined, but prosperity of the planet is also tied to energy policy. And with energy abundance, we can lift the lives of everyone around the world. With that, I look forward to taking questions from all of you. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, thank you very much. I think the Europeans in the room will have been very content with your linking your energy diplomacy in part to the policies the President is pursuing in the interest of getting a peace between Russia and Ukraine. The Bahrainis in the room will be very interested in your message of economic partnership because of the CCPA arrangement that was signed, and others may well soon join. I have several questions piling up, but I thought I might just ask one to kick off with you. The IISS at the end of last year published a very thick dossier on energy security in the Eastern Mediterranean. I know that you're shortly off to Athens and that you're engaged in Eastern Mediterranean energy diplomacy. It's a very complex region, the Eastern Mediterranean, and I wonder whether you could give us a sense first of how you approach that visit and your diplomacy with the states of the Eastern Mediterranean.
Well, this will be Secretary of Energy Chris Wright and I, and Deputy Secretary Danley, who is here today from Energy, will all be at PTEC in Athens. But this follows up that both Secretary Wright and I were both at GasTech earlier in Milan this year, where we had an opportunity between the two of us. I think we met with over 20 different energy ministers during the time that we were there. This is, again, all about pursuing this idea of if the United States produces enormous amounts of LNG and we're investing in all that export facility, we have to make sure that commensurate on the other side that there are the ability to receive it. There's been discussions about NATO upping their defense spending for security to 5%. You know, that's broken to 3.5% of that was going to be directed towards defense, 1.5% towards infrastructure. Think about that infrastructure as being part of the investment, because if energy security equals national security, making investments in pipelines to be in LNG import facilities would again help strengthen that. In the Eastern European or Eastern Mediterranean, where there are enormous gas resources, and some of that development has begun over there. There's discussions around the 3+1, but how do we develop those resources as another way to create alternatives? Because whenever we've got energy abundance, that's going to reduce chokeholds of aggressors that might feel like, hey, because everyone's buying from us, then we have the ability to exert more power. So energy abundance is great for prosperity, great for peace. So we'd like to see how those resources developed. And it's not, if you have an idea of energy abundance, then it's less about scarcity. It's not like, oh, we're worried about, a customer being displaced by some capability in the Eastern Mediterranean, because there are so many opportunities for us to lift up the whole world, and particularly with LNG, such a versatile fuel. I mean, can be used for heat, can be used for electricity, which we need for AI, as I talked about, but it also can be used to make fertilizer, which we need for food generation. So again, there's a tremendous future for LNG around the globe.
And one quickie before I go to the 8 or 9 people who now want to ask you questions, and that is, one initial I didn't hear from you was SMRs. Where does small modular reactors fit in the national economic dominance agenda?
Well, President Trump signed 4 executive orders around nuclear earlier this year. Since the time that he signed that, there's been a record amount of capital flowing back into this industry. This was an industry in America that was at one time the U.S. was the preeminent in those capabilities, but concerns, a lot of it, as we say the word NIMBYism, not in my backyard. People had concerns about safety. Some of those, I think, unfounded. I mean, it became a bit of a hysteria around nuclear, as I've shared humorously, but it's true. A vending machine like that you would put money into to get a can of pop or a candy bar come out of. More people have died in America in the last 30 years from getting angry at vending machines and it tipping over on them than have died from nuclear. And that just happens to be an odd little quirky but true thing. I mean, the safety record of nuclear is incredible. With SMRs, one of the great benefits of SMRs, and there is a great future there, is being able to put the power generation close to where the load demand is. And it won't be just for specialized things like, hey, we've got a remote air base in the middle of Alaska, or we've got remote parts of our country to be able to do that. And then you cut out all the costs of building transmission lines because you can put the generation next to there. There's some real benefits, but there's real competition. There's over a dozen companies right now that are pursuing new designs, tremendous amount of innovation, and again, venture capital flowing back into that. We expect nuclear, this is all on the fission side. There are some people that still hold out that there's a possibility for fusion. Yeah. The last thing, John, I would say, which I didn't talk in my remarks, but the other thing that the NEDC is focusing on is critical minerals. And as we begin dialogues with other countries, and if you saw the activity of the last week, just a week ago Monday, we signed the first of an agreement with Australia. Since that time, we've had Malaysia, Thailand, Japan, Korea, and many others lined up to join part of this club of nations that could trade freely, both processing and critical minerals amongst each other, in part in a response to the export controls announced by by China. So we are also, that's another thing that we're deeply involved in from the NEDC, and happy to take questions on that as well.
Super. Well, thank you very much. I'll take 5 or 6 questions and clump them up together for you, but first from Bahrain, Hassan Al-Hassan.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I'm right here in the back. From a market share perspective, the US's quote-unquote energy dominance agenda seems to set it on a collision course with net oil and gas exporters here in the region. The energy dominance agenda itself is framed in zero-sum terms, and perhaps that's no coincidence. But my question is not about oil and gas, it's about nuclear. Saudi Arabia and the United States have been negotiating for quite some time the terms of a civil nuclear energy cooperation agreement, but those negotiations have been somewhat slow to fully materialize. Could you provide us with a status update, Secretary, on those negotiations? And are you concerned that if those negotiations ultimately collapse or do not progress quickly enough for the Saudis, that the Saudis will instead opt for non-American civil nuclear technology, including perhaps Chinese? Thank you.
Thanks very much. We'll collect those. Verlin Owens.
Thank you, John. Secretary, you, of course, already mentioned critical minerals, which are, of course, vital for modern energy technologies and an intensifying area of strategic competition. How is the U.S. seeking to realign these supply chains? You've mentioned a couple of countries already, but will the mineral security partnership still feature part of your efforts? And secondly, could you offer a status update on the creation of a critical minerals reserve, akin to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve? Thank you.
And from the U.S., Jonathan Bass.
Hi, Secretary Burgum. Thank you for coming. Jonathan Bass from Argent LNG. We're developing the 25 million ton facility in Port Fourchon, Louisiana. My question to you is, we signed a deal with Turkey to supply gas into the Balkans, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and we're getting pressure from the Russians internally. How do you see that pressure being counteracted by those governments to be able to take on American gas as a separate supply in creating an energy hub in Turkey?
I'll take one more and then come back to the Secretary, James Hackett from the UK.
Thank you, John. Secretary, could you briefly explore, back on the subject of CRM, critical raw materials, what's the US onshoring strategy in this regard? What are the key priority areas for extraction, but also refining, which was the key pinch point, not just the minerals themselves? And what's your aspiration for this region and the place that this region can hold in US CRM policy moving forward? Thanks.
Perfect. So nuclear cooperation with Saudi Arabia, critical minerals reserve, the Turkey, Balkans, and Russia nexus, and onshoring critical minerals. Over to you.
Okay, great. Well, let me jump in the same order here. But first, relative to Saudi Arabia nuclear, and again, the energy dominance. I mean this partly with I would say with a smile, and partly not. But the Energy Dominance Council came up with a name. Inside the White House is where the Energy Dominance Council is. There's also the National Economic Council, NEC. National Energy Council would have had the same initials, same acronym. This would have created a lot of confusion, just like the NSC, which is a different group. But the NEDC was, again, you want to say interchangeably, energy abundance with energy dominance. It's not about dominating another nation or whatever. It's about having the energy to be able to not be dependent, be able to, again, sell energy to your friends and allies. But there is so much demand. It's not net zero. There's so much demand coming in the world for energy, particularly around electricity. We're just short of electricity relative to what we need to power this whole AI generation. So it really was a call to America to say, we've got to increase. It's not a transition, it's an energy addition. And of course, when we were trying to come up with names, some of you, I saw that Metallica is playing here in January, so they're even in Bahrain. So there must be some interest in aging rock bands still touring the world. But AC/DC from Australia, they started touring 55 years ago. Some of the same people are still touring. Their T-shirts had AC/DC with a lightning bolt. So then we were thinking, if we had merchandise, that it would be any DC with a lightning bolt. Hopefully that's all translating. But with that on the nuclear front, I had a great meeting electronically with ABS just before I got on a plane to fly here on Thursday night. And so the discussion with Saudi Arabia is ongoing. I expect there's going to be a lot of activity between now and when the Crown Prince is visiting the United States on November 18th. I would expect that I'm very hopeful that now that the conclusion with the discussions in Asia, that there will be significant announcements and hopefully even agreements signed when the Crown Prince and the President are together here coming up in 18 days. So that's but those negotiations, I would say, are ongoing. Relative to critical minerals, there was two. Yes, we need a reserve for critical minerals, and so do other countries as well. But the United States in particular, again, I would call it environmental extremism that has been applied for the last 20 plus years at home has helped kill the mining industry in America. We've got rare earth minerals all over our own country. We've got critical minerals. You take a look at the periodic table and say, what are the top 20 most valuable materials? I mean, China is doing 85 to 100% of the processing in the world. So it's not just a U.S. problem. It is a global problem and gives China, which imports 1.5 million barrels of oil a day. They import more coal than anyone else in the world. They import more gas than anyone else in the world. They're also the world's largest, for those, if they might be here from the EU or others that are still concerned about CO2, they're the world's largest emitter of all of these things. But they're a country that does not have food security and does not have energy security. But they made a decision 30 years ago. Let's have a chokehold on the rest of the world relative to strategic minerals, and the United States in particular, we let that happen to ourselves, and we're determined to make sure that we do not have that dependency in the future. That means that we have to onshore processing. We have to get back in the mining business, and many actions have been taken. One of the things that's probably the most remarkable in a country that has stayed away forever of having government ownership in the private sector is there have been 3 deals that have been announced where the Department of War, using effectively congressional authority to be able to make investments in companies that are doing critical mineral processing. We don't want to own 51%. We don't want to have government-run businesses, but we needed to send a signal to the capital markets that we were interested in reviving those industries in America. So, for example, whether we own 10 to 20% of a company. In some cases, those companies' market values have tripled since the announcement of U.S. participation. The Department of War, formerly Department of Defense, taking offtake agreements, and then also a commitment that we're going to be doing stockpiling or strategic reserves. And with the, as I tell the senators, yes, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, we're working to begin to refill some of that. But if we've got extra dollars laying around, it's more important for us right now with the shale revolution between the Marcellus, the Bakken, and the Permian. If we need more oil, we know where to go get it, and we just go turn that switch on. So we essentially have an underground reserve there that we can tap into, but we did not have the resources we need into the critical minerals. So there's a determined attempt to do that, to make sure we have that. What was happening, as I'm sure you all know, if a U.S. company got into mining, they started to develop a material, there'd be illegal dumping by China that would collapse the price. The company would go from being profitable to not being profitable. Then they not only couldn't do an IPO, they couldn't even get a loan in some cases. They were literally killing the mining industry strategically in our country, and the United States government is saying, and from a defense security saying, we can't let that happen. That is on the one of the questions was also about this region. This is another discussion that I had with ABS when we were on the phone the other day, is about critical minerals, and often critical minerals don't exist on their own. In the case of Saudi Arabia, there's some of the two heavy metals that are most important are also tied to the same mining operation with uranium, and so it's integral sometimes when we're having a discussion about uranium relative to nuclear discussion, relative to 1, 2, 3, to also be having that intertwined with discussions about critical minerals. So I think, again, those complex negotiations will continue, but we're interested in keeping those going. And the same thing in the U.S., where there's been an ideological battle waged against coal in our own country. We're absolutely under this administration trying to reverse that, in part because many of the richest deposits of critical minerals in America for some of the key minerals like gallium, germanium exist inside U.S. coal. And if you're processing the coal for thermal uses and doing that in a clean way, if there's a coal plant running in America, it's extremely clean because it's been under regulatory attack for 20 years. I mean, if they've survived this long, they're among the cleanest facilities in the world. But we would have an opportunity jointly to attach on critical minerals processing to some of those existing operations.
Wonderful. Can you offer any comfort to Jonathan Bass on Turkey, Balkans, and Russia's role?
Oh, thank you. Yes, that was my last one here. But yeah, we do have the U.S. ambassador from Turkey is here with us today. I know he's going to be in some dialogues with us this afternoon. If you haven't had an opportunity to meet him, please do. We see this as part of this idea of getting LNG to Eastern Europe, and Turkey could play a key role there.
Super. We'll take 4 more and then come back to you, Mr. Secretary. From the United Kingdom, Tom Beckett.
Thank you. Secretary Burgum, President Trump in his first term was berated Europe for its energy reliance on Russia, and he was quite right to do so. If countries opt, and building probably on Jonathan's question, if countries opt to buy from the US, will the US be a reliable supplier, or will it turn taps off and tariffs on at a whim?
Mona Al-Wazais from Bahrain.
Yes, thank you. So the U.S. has declared a national energy emergency, and Mr. Secretary, you also mentioned the Energy Dominance Council, and it's going to accelerate oil, gas, and geothermal development. So how does the U.S. plan to lead on global energy security without undermining climate goals?
Thank you very much. And from one of our young leaders from Morocco, Hatim Aznagre.
Thank you so much. Hello, Honorable Secretary. Thank you. Much of the U.S. approach to the regional energy security still relies on the legacy frameworks built for hydrocarbon flows and crisis response. As the Gulf acquires greater geopolitical momentum and the Mediterranean becomes increasingly relevant to supply diversification, what specific mechanisms in the United States prepared to modernize or rethink to ensure this cooperation does not remain reactive, but anticipatory and institutionalized building? Thank you.
Thank you. And from Bahrain, Faisal Sayed.
Good afternoon, Secretary. Touching on rare earth minerals again, amidst recent Chinese stances and comments and threats with respect to shutting off rare earth minerals, could you please explain how realistic and feasible is it to challenge Chinese dominance to prevent these bottlenecks, and what timeline is this execution realistic?
Thank you. And 2 more, one from Sascha Buschmann of Germany.
Thank you, John. Mr. Secretary, with your US hyperscalers, basically hyperscaling AI, there seems to be an exponential increase in demand for electricity, much of it produced from natural gas. Given that natural gas is also now really important as an export commodity to Europe and has that security dimension, I'm curious about, is the exponentially growing demand by AI at some point going to eat into your export capacity? Where do you see both grow? Because both seem to be growing, how do these trend lines collide?
And finally, Bruna Hult-Oxendorf, the Director of Science and Technology Committee of Parliament.
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, I'm here at the back. Thank you, Honorable Secretary, for your interesting remarks. So in my role at the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, I work with 280 legislators from across the 32 NATO countries, and obviously defense spending is very high on our agenda, especially the new 1.5%, which you mentioned earlier on. I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit on the 1.5% investment in terms of the energy pipelines. It is my understanding that the framework for the 1.5% is still being negotiated and agreed upon at NATO HQ. And famously, obviously, the Italians have been said no, a bridge from Sicily to mainland Italy does not count. And I would be interested in hearing more if the US will push for energy security equals national security in terms of the 1.5% investment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I think that presents quite a package of questions for you, so over to you, sir.
Well, let me start off with Thomas's question off the bat from the UK on tariffs and would the US turn the taps off. One of the things that I think is important, while I haven't seen a headline, but if you take a look at the tariff strategy of the United States, energy's never been a part of it. It's not, even with Canada, you might say, oh, there's a battle going on between the US and Canada over tariffs. That's about automobiles. That's between Ontario and the state of Michigan, which side of the border the auto factory to be on. I mean, the US is, a huge partner with the western provinces, Alberta, Saskatchewan, in terms of millions of barrels of oil a day flowing back and forth across those borders. My own state was a border state with Canada. We had pipelines flow in both directions. Zero tariffs on energy. The intention, at least right now, there's been no indication that we're going to have any plan other than to continue that way. And with this Club of Nations approach on critical minerals, same thing, tariff-free exchange. I think it's important that as part of this energy diplomacy that we've got the free movement of energy. Energies are, it's global markets. We expect that. And again, the commercial interests are so aligned, forget the politics or policy, but the U.S. energy is not, it's not a government, oil or gas company. These are private companies. They've got strong, powerful interests. When they develop customer bases around the world, they don't want to have policy shut them off. They're still confused about why the prior administration even said you can't even build an LNG export facility. But maybe that, again, I'll jump to that other question that the individual asked from the U.S. about hyperscalers and demand. The U.S. has the remarkable ability to continue to increase our gas production in many of these shale fields, which are still growing. As the field develops, the gas-oil ratio keeps increasing. In my own state, during the time that I was governor, the gas-to-oil ratio doubled. And so people say, oh, your oil production is relatively flat. And I'm like, yes, it's flat, but our gas production has doubled. Well, how's that with no more wells? It's just the ratio, it keeps increasing. So we've got the ability, and the thing which I would also tap into this thing from a global pricing standpoint is Alaska has so much gas. The Alaska pipeline was created 50 years ago. This was a technological marvel. It starts on the North Slope. It goes 800 miles, it crosses 3 mountain ranges. The highest one is 4,100 feet above sea level, up and down. It was built on the North Slope in an area where there's frozen tundra. It's on stilts. It's an area of seismic. It's got the ability to withstand the seismic activity. So 50 years without a spill. And this pipeline was built in 28 months, and they had to build a road next to it. It was in a place that was a roadless wilderness. So this is back when America could build great things quickly, and part of the Trump administration is we've got to be able to build, like incredibly great technological marvels and do that at a speed that we were able to do, in our own lifetimes. How do we get back to that? But for every barrel of oil that came off the North Slope, and it's been billions of barrels of oil have come south of that pipeline, there was no ability to export gas the gas that came up with every barrel of oil was re-injected in the ground. I mean, there's known trillions of BCF that have gone back into that North Slope. And when we look at the demand for LNG from our Pacific allies, Japan, Korea, Philippines, others that have virtually no oil and gas resources, it's 8 days from Anchorage, Alaska to Tokyo. It's a secure supply route that we can provide. So there's an opportunity as we look at markets around the world where there's going to be increasing demand. Africa, India, China continues to have consumption going up. There's markets everywhere, but we need more supply. Otherwise, we're going to have, again, the inflationary impacts that would affect global prosperity. So that's another aspect. But and then the hyperscalers, which again, when I said earlier that a kilowatt of electricity is worth more than ever has been in human history, that flows back into the business models of the tech company. I spent 30 years in tech before I became a governor. I was a corporate officer for one of the largest tech companies in the world. During the time that I was there, the company grew from $9 billion in net income to $18 billion in net income. We grew from 40,000 employees to 90,000 employees, and we had almost no CapEx expenditures, no CapEx expenditures. We were a software company. We hired salespeople and software developers. If we needed, an office in Munich or Singapore or someplace, you leased it. So there literally was, even as a corporate officer, there wasn't a CapEx meeting to go to. Today, right now, as we sit here, the 5 big tech companies in America have a combined CapEx budget for next year, the next 12 months, of $384 billion globally. $384 billion. Almost all of that is going into trying to, chips, AI factories. I call them an AI factory, not a data center, because the data center is a closed loop thing, between a company and their customer and transaction. I mean, an AI factory is producing a GPT, general purpose technology. It can be used by anybody. It can be used to cure cancer. It can be used for defense. It can be used for anything. The demand for that capability, that productivity enhancing capability, is going to be enormous. And so these guys are trying to build out power generation because the regulated power producers in America have been lulled to sleep for the last 30 years in a regulated environment where they're managing an asset base towards a return that was determined by often state regulators, as opposed to being real entrepreneurs that say, if I produce more electricity, someone will pay more for it. And it won't erase, and if it's off the grid, it won't affect the consumer pricing. So there's going to be a whole revolution in how power is generated, but that's creating demand, global supply chains for turbines, for transformers, for everything else that we need to produce that electricity. But again, there is capital that's flowing around the world, but that's just for 5 companies. And again, just to put it in perspective, if any of you, are a financial analyst or follow markets, $384 billion from 5 companies is bigger in the U.S. than the next 5 industries. I mean, you throw, automotive, plus manufacturing, plus whatever, you can't get to $384 billion from 5 industries, much less 5 companies. And so this is a complete sea change that anybody that's in the energy business needs to understand. There's a whole new set of customers that didn't even come knocking at your door other than to sell you software. Now they're going to be some of the biggest consumers of this, and their focus in the short term is on natural gas because, the nuclear stuff is a few years away. Someone did mention geothermal in here as well, but we're committed. It's not in the U.S. that we're committed to, people have misused this word renewables. It's about baseload. It's about persistent, affordable baseload. It's about energy sources that aren't highly subsidized. The Trump administration is not ideologically against wind and solar. We're against spending taxpayer money through the roof to subsidize forms of electricity that don't work when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing. And then if they say, oh, but we'll solve it with batteries, but all the batteries come from critical minerals that are controlled by China, that's not a good national security policy. So geothermal we can do at home, nuclear we can do at home, gas we can do at home, hydro we can do at home. So all of these things which might also fall into the category of renewables are something we're interested in. We're just not interested in doing the massive subsidies on the back of taxpayers.
And then perhaps you could just end exactly on that note and explain how you would respond to the specific question of whether it's feasible to challenge China's dominance in rare earth minerals to prevent bottlenecks. What's the poker play that's going on there?
Well, I think part of this is a great question. Part of it I addressed earlier, which is again, it's a huge, big step forward. The U.S. government, through the Department of War, is investing in companies that do critical mineral mining and refining. I mean, this is like not happened before, where we're making direct equity investments in those companies. And then we're also opening up public lands. President Trump signed with a stroke of a pen, there's a 211-mile industrial toll road that's going to be built in northern Alaska that goes to the Ambler mining region. There's over 1,700 mining claims there. It's one of the richest mining areas in the world. It's never been able to be accessed before. That's going to happen. So we're doing the things to increase supply. We're making investments to restructure how capital can flow to the refining industry, and we're partnering with all of our other allies. The framework that I described that's been signed by 6 countries in the last 2 weeks, any country that wants to have that discussion with us should, because I think very quickly we can say, here's the framework, join the club, and let's all work together to solve the critical minerals supply issue together.
Mr. Secretary, we might have to close with that, but could I myself close by saying, as a chair, it's really a joy to see someone not only so passionate about their subject matter, but in such command of their subject matter. And thank you for addressing this audience on energy security and for your participation in this 21st Manama Dialogue. It's been a delight. Thank you very much.
And
You're a cabinet secretary. Have a last quick word.
I don't want to kill your applause line, John. Sorry, but I was going to say to everybody here, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the dialogue. And for those of you that are in dialogue with the United States, again, we are grateful for all of our partnerships across this region. And we're grateful for the opportunity to continue to use energy diplomacy to bring peace to not only to this region, to the whole world, but also to make sure that we've got prosperity for every citizen on the globe. It begins with energy security, or national security begins and ends with energy security, but so does prosperity. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, sir.